Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Mindfulness Matters online workshop. I'm super excited. This is our May workshop. During today, we're going to be talking about our mindfulness, not just when it comes to like our day to day, being more present, but also when it comes to our nutrition and when it comes to how we move our body, when we should be, what we should be looking for, how we can be more in tune. So I'm super excited for this month's workshop. The whole month of May has been dedicated to mindfulness, us just being more aware. If you're watching this workshop and you've noticed that you did not watch our free training inside our Busy Moms group, please make sure that you go back, watch that training, because although we're going to be covering some of the tips today that I shared there, I'm not going to be going into as great as detail as I did because I already went into it. So I'm going to recover them, but very briefly, because I have a ton more tips, tools, and strategies that I'm going to be sharing today. So, as we are kind of joining in here, for those of you who are watching live, I know this gets streamed into our Facebook, our Inner Circle community. So, if you are watching there and you're watching live, drop hashtag live in the comments. Let me know you're there. For those of you who are tuning in for the replay, where that may be on YouTube or it may be on Facebook, wherever that may be, make sure to drop hashtag replay in the comments. Let us know that you're tuning in, that you've actually started to watch the video. At the end of the video, I will be asking for takeaways and I will be giving you some homework. So, using that comment section to ask any questions along the way to make sure that everything's crystal clear. That if there's a what if, a but, or well, what should I be doing, whatever that looks like, put that in there. And I'm going to be watching those comments here in live. And if you are watching the replay, those comments I will get notified and I will follow up and I will make sure to reach out and get you your answers. So, as we move into today, I want us to really focus on not just learning tools, strategies, and techniques, but also implementing and creating an action plan that works for you. Because one of the things here in Get Fit with me is we really focus on not just you learning and learning and learning and learning and consuming, but taking at least one small piece from everything you learn and implement it. Try it out. Okay, that doesn't work. Why didn't it work? How can I change it next time? Troubleshooting. Because remember, there's no cookie cutter perfect program that everybody's going to follow, whether it comes to mindset, whether it comes to nutrition, whether it comes to fitness. It's super, super important that we are actually taking these tools, creating our own action plan that works for us, a system that works for us, but also being able to tweak that and come to me for support if you get stuck anywhere. So, as we move into today, I'm going to go over today's agenda. So, for today's agenda, we're going to go over some tools and techniques. You are going to want to make sure that you've got a notebook with you. So, if there's a tool or technique that kind of stands out, write that down. Reason being is if we're just sitting here listening, and then when I go to give you the assignment at the end that we're going to work through together, and you forget all the tools and techniques because you're like, oh, what was that one? Make note so that you don't forget what one kind of resonated with you. After we go over some tools and techniques in all three of those areas, in the movement of your body, in your nutrition, as well as just in your normal mental fitness state, we are then going to create a game plan on how you can actually start to use some of these tools in your everyday life. And then, well, I'm going to go over homework, how you're going to share your homework, what that is. It's nothing super crazy, but it's a great way to see who's done, who showed up to the training, who actually did it, and what you got from it. So, with that, we're going to be moving into some of our tools and techniques here. Like I said, if you have any questions throughout the way, drop them in the comments. I am going to be following along, watching over in Facebook, but also I get notified for all of the replay comments as well in YouTube and in Facebook. So as we go through, I'm going to go through our top 5 tips that I gave. Those are in the free one. That's in the free training in the Busy Moms group. Remember, I'm not going to go into great detail, but I'm going to just touch on them. So, number one was music is magical. And essentially, what that means is anytime you feel like you're in a slump, you're feeling down, whatever that looks like, put on your favorite song, dance, sing, listen to something good that you can just listen to and embrace. It will change your outlook, it will change the way you are feeling. Next one is box breathing. And some of you may have fitness watches. My watch actually has a feature where it vibrates when I'm supposed to breathe in and vibrates when I'm supposed to breathe out. So, box breathing is just a way to regulate our system and to help bring us back to how we are feeling, get out of our head of all of the busyness and clutter. Grounding yourself. So, grounding yourself can look a variety of ways. It can be going outside without shoes or socks. It can mean somebody I was talking to, she bought like a grounding mat for her bed. Like grounding can look a little bit different. For me, I get the most effect when I am completely barefoot out there, whether I'm standing, sitting, laying in the hammock. But as long as I am barefoot right there, that just like gets me into a different mind space. So grounding can look a little bit different. Space Space from the situation that is irritating you, space from the problem that you've been stuck on and you've been rattling back and forth over and over and over and over again, wondering why a 20-minute project is now taking you 2 hours. Give yourself space from that. And then the fifth one that we went over in the free training before we get into some of these newer ones is journaling. Journaling, whether it actually be a physical journal where you are writing or it be a digital journal like the notes section in your phone, using that as a space to create some clarity, because a lot of times what happens is this is a really great tool that I have people use at the end of their day is if we can't shut our brain off and we're thinking about all the things that we need to do, doing a journal brain dump, even on a notepad or on your phone, preferably on a notepad because we're going down to bed, so we don't want to have as many screens around us. But also, it could be in the middle of the day if you're rethinking a conversation with someone or you're overthinking something else, put it in writing, get it out of your head. Because the more it stays in there and doesn't get out, it's just going to keep bouncing around and keep being a hindrance. So, those were the top five that we talked about originally. Those were the ones that we talked about in the free training. I recommended that you try them all on. The one thing that I love about the balance of those five, and those five are my go to, like, no matter what, but that is just for like mental. That is not for nutrition. That is not for movement. But the reason I go to those is they require just me. I don't need anybody else for those to happen. And I can do them in a variety of situations. So if I can't put in headphones and dance around, I know I can at least journal. Or if I can't journal, maybe I can go walk outside and give myself space and ground myself. So they encompass a lot of different things that are all for me. So that's why I like those 5. Those are why they are my favorite, why I shared them. But in this workshop, we dive in a little bit deeper into some other options because maybe you're thinking, those are really great, Morgan. I liked them, I tried them, but I need some different ideas. So we're going to kind of go through and we're going to start with our mind. So we're going to stick with the mind because that's where we're at. After that, we're going to go into movement. And then after that, we're going to go into nutrition. So, when we are thinking about our mindfulness, some things that people do that they find really effective, and one of the biggest things that I want you to remember is I'm going to give you a lot of tools and techniques and tips today. Do not go and try to implement every single one. That is why you've got your pen and paper. I want you to note the ones that stand out to you. This replay is always going to be available, so you can always go back and listen. But I want you to pick the ones that stand out to you, and maybe you're writing each of them down and you just put a star next to the one of like, yeah, that one was really good. But you write them all down just so you have them. Totally up to you and which option is best. But what I want you to remember is we're not going to take them all on, but we want to have 3 to 5 in each of these areas that we can kind of have in our toolbox. Like I said, I've got my 5 mental fitness ones that I tend to go to, but I do have a list of all these other ones that I may bring in. So one of them is our daily meditation. So dedicating even just a few minutes each day to meditate and calm your mind and increase your mindfulness. Some people do this with like visualization of what their day, their goals, what they want their life to look like. This can look different, and daily meditation is different for everybody. But the one thing that I have found, if you do it, is dedicate a space and a time to do it, because a lot of times if we are not setting aside a specific time to do it, it doesn't happen. And if we don't I find if I don't start my day with it, it's not going to happen and life gets too busy. So starting your day off with it allows you to clear your mind, create your intention for the day, and then feel ready to go. The next one is a gratitude journal. So I don't know how many of you guys do this, but a lot of the clients that I work with, we do 3 daily wins or we do 3 weekly wins, and we write down the things that you're grateful for or things that you're proud of yourself for. And this kind of goes back to the gap in the gain concept. If you've never read the book The Gap in the Gain, I highly recommend it. Um, I've never been a huge reader, but when I do find a book that I really like, I love it. And I want to tell everybody about it. And The Gap in the Gain is one of those. So it's all about looking not so much about how far we still have to go, but really turning around and looking at what we've accomplished and looking at all those little small wins and milestones. And a gratitude journal is a great way to just get present with like all the great things that happen in the day. Because there are times when we get into a victim mindset and we start to feel like, "Ah, it's not going my way. Ah, it's not going my way. Life sucks, this and that. We're not making progress." When in reality, if we turn around and we look behind us and we see all these small wins, maybe it was you hit your step goal. Maybe it was you were able to go out and run around the track with your daughter. Maybe it was you just traveled and you were able to stay on track with a few of your habits while traveling. Being grateful and also celebrating those wins along the way allow us to be more positive, but also allow us to see the progress that we are making. So you can call it a gratitude journal, you can call it a win journal, whatever you want to call it. But and if that is something that I know a lot of you that are watching this, we work one on one together. If that's something you want to add into your life and have daily wins that you share with me just to get you in that practice, let me know and we will add that as an action in my coach. So, kind of moving down some other things, I'm going to kind of bounce back into that grounding. Nature walks, take leisurely walks in nature to connect with the outdoors and clear your mind. And one of the biggest things when you do this is to leave your phones, leave your headphones, leave as much technology inside as possible and just go be outside. And typically in the summer, one of my favorite ways to do this is I don't necessarily go for nature walks because I'm in town and I've I still haven't got a good routine of going somewhere and doing these. But I love going to our backyard, having the hammock up. Even if I don't have, I will take my phone and my headphones out because I'll work out there, but then I set them aside and I just sit there. For instance, this morning I had just my coffee out in the hammock and it was very relaxing. I just listened to the birds, I felt the wind, all of those things to get really present. So that's a really good way to get present with everything that's going on when life is busy. And I talk to everybody. Everybody's life is busy right now. We all have 1,000 things to do. It's a new transition. So remembering that we can do little things, whether it's starting your day with being outside, but that right there was one of my favorite. I had meetings this morning, I had some things to take care of, and then my laptop needed to charge, so I left that inside charging and I went outside and had coffee in my hammock. So finding just those little bursts throughout your day that are 5 to 10 minutes to help get you outside. Maybe it is actually being able to walk through nature, but trying to leave as much of your technology at home, the better. And that kind of stems into our next one. Our next one is called digital detox. And this can be done on a daily basis. This can be done on a weekly basis. This can look a little bit differently for everybody. So it's essentially scheduling regular breaks from screens to reduce digital overwhelm and to give your mind a rest. We unfortunately have progressed into where technology is everywhere, which is awesome. That is what's allowed me to do my business. But it's also, I've noticed the more screen time I have, the worse my posture becomes. I get some headaches back here, and I tend to lose clarity and I get stuck in everything that's just in front of me. So it's digital detox breaks are really great. It can mean, for instance, I set up timers on my phone for I get no more than 2 hours of social media time a day. That doesn't include my emails, but that includes Facebook and Instagram. And I started with a really big one. And then I started to see what my regular trends were, and I created one that seemed reasonable. Honestly, during the week, I don't go over. It's usually on the weekends when I have downtime away from work is when I tend to spend more time on my phone. This can look like putting your phone on do not disturb and until that timer goes off or you complete that project or until you go do this one thing, you can't come back and be on that technology. Um, it can look different. Sometimes it's just doing Sunday dinners without the TV, without the phone, without iPads, whatever that looks like. So really just thinking about taking time for yourself away from that technology. I know it's hard. And I find if I put it in another room, I don't even think about it. But if I have it and I set it right here, the likelihood of me being distracted by it is much higher. The other thing I do is I put my phone face down just about all the time because then I don't see the light pop up. I don't see any of that. So that's another good way of if you are someone who's a little bit nervous about putting that phone away or putting that technology away, just start by doing things like flipping it upside down so you don't see those notifications. Maybe putting it on do not disturb, things like that. Um, okay. If you have any questions so far, I'm just going to refresh over here on Facebook real quick to make sure we're doing well. And then, so as we keep going through here, we're going to be talking about we're going to keep on this mindfulness, but I'm kind of talk about on when I start to feel overwhelmed. So sensory awareness. A lot of times I tend to get overwhelmed when there's like a TV going, a phone going, we're having a conversation, there's something going on outside that I've noticed that I get sensory overwhelm. Same thing, like if you're in the car, I know I can't be the only one that has to turn the music down to see the street sign. I know that makes no sense, but we get overwhelmed in certain situations, and sometimes it's based on our senses. So making sure to take time throughout the day to notice the sights and sounds and smells and tastes and textures around you as a form of awareness so that we're not only getting those at a time of overwhelm of like, oh, I'm overwhelmed and now I'm addressing all of these. By being able to notice the sights, the sounds, the textures, the taste, those things during the day when we're actually present and we're not overwhelmed allows us to actually enjoy them a little bit more and allows that brain to calm down. Prioritizing self care. And this is making time for activities that nourish your body, your mind, your soul. And that could mean reading a book, taking a bath, enjoying a hobby. That can mean going shopping. That could mean going getting a massage, getting together with girlfriends, whatever that looks like. But making sure that you prioritize self care is going to be that next one. And typically, I have noticed that when I go long periods long stretches without seeing my girlfriends or seeing a girlfriend, I tend to feel like that lull, that I'm missing something. So I always have something scheduled, whether it's bi-weekly or once a month. I tend to get together with at least one of my girlfriends every couple weeks and we schedule it. The next time we're together, we schedule the upcoming time. That allows us to also not feel like we are pushing and feeling like, "Ugh, I'm just not doing enough in my friendships." Because remember, if you go back to some of the trainings towards the start of the year, when we talk about all the areas in life that we want to be in equal circle, one of them is friends and family. And if we start giving too much time one spot, something's got to give. But if we can find a perfect balance between all of it, it makes us feel better physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things. Um, okay, let me see here. I'm going to bump down to I'm going to do one more here as we kind of transition. So, those are a ton of different mindful mindset tips. And I'm going to bump down to two here, and then we're going to kind of move into it. So, establishing a routine is also very important. And this kind of fits for all. This fits for our nutrition, this fits for our movement, and this also fits for our mindset. And establishing a routine, creating a daily schedule that includes time for work, relaxation, sleep, exercise, weight, by having that routine helps us maintain and balance our stress levels so we don't feel that burnout. So we don't feel like we have to go on a vacation every few weeks just to revive ourselves. And same thing goes, I'm going to take that, establish a routine. So we establish that routine, it makes our mind feel better. It makes us feel like we're in control. And the more that we can control, that is actually ours to control. Whereas a lot of times we try to control things that are not ours. But the more we can control that are actually ours, the better we feel, the more calm we feel, the more at ease. But this also applies to our exercise routine. So, in our 90-day summer strength program, I'm creating your exercise routine for you. We've got a Sunday rest day, we've got strength training Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday 30, Tuesday, Thursday, you've got a 30-minute walk, run, intentional movement, and then Saturday you've got stretching. So, having a routine as well in your exercise allows you to stay on track, allows you to stay committed, allows you to know what is coming. Because so many people who don't run with a calendar or who don't know what's coming, the likelihood of things happening is slim to none. So the more you can plan those workouts as well, the better. And then when we move into our nutrition, it has been shown that if you meal prep, you plan, and you have the things on hand, you are going to eat better. You are going to consume less calories. You are going to spend less money, and you are going to feel better because you know what's going in your body. So, establishing a routine in all of these areas build on one another. The other thing that kind of hits in all these areas is progressive goal setting. And this kind of goes back to that gap in the game that I was sharing with you is we want to break down larger goals into smaller, manageable tasks to reduce overwhelm and track progress more effectively. So this is micro habits. This is micro goals. This is what we work together when we work one-on-one. We're taking that big goal of weight loss or that big goal of getting stronger or that big goal of refining our nutrition, whatever that looks like. And we are breaking it down into really small things. And that may mean maybe that big goal is drinking 100 ounces of water, and you hear this from me a lot. Okay, that's the big goal, but you're only drinking 30. Our goal is 35 ounces. We will slowly work up. The reason I say it brings us back to the gap and the gain is because we take this big goal and we break it down. If we don't break it down the right way, we keep feeling like we are failing, we are not moving forward. I've been working at this goal for so long. I've created an unrealistic goal for myself. I'm still not making progress. We get down on all the things that haven't happened. But when we take these smaller goals and we acknowledge the wins and we turn around and we look at, wow, I did 20 workouts this month. Look at that. That's awesome. Maybe your goal was 30, but you did 20. And that's just a random thing I said. Don't say that you've got to be doing any of that. But you did 20 workouts out of the 30 days. Well, the month before you only did 15. So you're slowly growing. So remembering that it's always important to look back, to take those big goals and break them up when it comes to our nutrition, when it comes to our exercise, and when it comes to our mindfulness. Like your goal for today is to create your list of your go-to tools that you're going to use when you start to feel stressed, overwhelmed, and that you need to bring yourself back to being present. Did you do the assignment? Did you write them down? Are they in a spot that is you're actually going to remember what to do and how to do them? That right there is step number one. End goal is to use them on a regular basis. But maybe right now, step number one is just create it. Step number two is to look at it. Step number three is to try one of them. Like we slowly build on these micro habits and these goals all of the time. And that's how we become successful. That's how we reframe our mindset. We're living in a world where we expect instant gratification on anything. And it is really hard, especially when I work with clients. And a lot of you know this. We already have conversations like this so much as quick fixes and working on instant gratification. But when we start to work together, we really start to see the small changes that may not show up on the scale, that may not show up in the way we measure ourselves, but it's going to show up in our energy level. It's going to show up in our sleep. It's going to show up differently. And we actually have to track that and look at that because if it's taken us 30 years to get to a point of wanting to make a change and to wanting to change some of these habits that are ingrained in us, going to take us more than 6 months, 12 months, even a couple years. It's going to take time and repetition in creating this awareness and being very mindful, not just in our mindset, but in our exercise and our nutrition, and in all three when they come together. So, when we are kind of talking about that, I want us to slowly progress here into when we talk about movement. And I'm going to transition to movement and being mindful for a few reasons is I've worked with enough people, enough demographics to know that everybody has a different body mechanics. Everybody also has a different level of what painful is or what is uncomfortable. So it takes a lot to start to tune into your own body and to decipher what is pain, what is a stretch, what is what is maybe normal, but it just doesn't feel normal to you because you haven't done it. So being really mindful in how your body moves. When you walk up the stairs, do you walk up with ease or do you have a weird crack that happens in your right knee and it's like a sharp pain, but as soon as you're done, it goes away. Creating awareness around the movement that happens in your body is super important. So, do you notice that? Do you notice how your body moves? Do you notice if you've got full range of motion in your shoulders? Do you notice that you hold a lot of tension up here in those traps? Do you clench your jaw? Do you have really tight cheek muscles? And do you have knots down here along your jaw? I know I do. I notice that. I wear a bite guard. I know that this part right here, when this gets tight, this turns to here, this then pulls on the back, then you get headaches. There's a ton and all those muscles pull and tighten together. So, creating that awareness, listening to your body before it's injured is the other part. As often we don't choose to be mindful of how our body moves until it doesn't feel right. We need to be mindful of our body when it feels good, when we feel tired, when we have a ton of energy, when we've done something new, when we've been doing something for years. Does it still feel the same? What's changing about it? Because there are changes that happen in our body with age. They're not always good ones and they're not always bad ones. We are all different. Maybe the way that you have to set up your squat, I've talked about this. Like there's a ton of things that change in our bodies, but we don't tend to be aware of it. And we kind of just go through the motions. And then when an injury arises, we don't really have enough detail. So some of the things you can do is one, just start to, when you do things, just think about, okay, how does that feel? That feels really good. Or, oh yeah, that felt a little funny when I was at that ankle, but it wasn't all the time. You can make note of it. I tell clients to put notes down all the time. When something doesn't feel right, especially because a lot of times our bodies are kind of like a car. I don't know if you've ever had got a really old car, and of course something happens, and then I get it up to the mechanic, and then it doesn't happen anymore. Same thing happens when we go to the doctor and we're like, "So this happened once," or "This happens," and then we can't replicate it. So the more information we can keep, the better. Having a note section on your phone is a great spot, or even a little notepad where you kind of document some of these things that happen in your body. Not because we're anticipating they're going to happen all the time, but just making note. For instance, also if you've had a fall or something, making note of that fall. I know I've slipped down our stairs back here. Stairs are not proportionally correct based on the size foot I have and the angle. So I have been distracted and I've slipped down them. But I make note of when that happens in case an injury arises or in case something starts to not feel right. It allows me to think back and say, what might have happened that caused this to be that way? So being mindful, taking notes of things like that for your body allow us to actually have data for when we're trying to fix something or when we're trying to increase weight and get stronger, whatever that may look like. So, that is a really great way to become more mindful of your body. Another thing is if you've ever done yoga, one of my favorite things at the end of a yoga practice is when we lay on our back and we close our eyes, palms up to the sky, and you just kind of let your body sink in and really start to feel your body relax, not just your mind, but your actual muscles relax. And then when we wake up our muscles, moving those toes, those fingers, and slowly waking that body up. So if you've never done one of those, I highly recommend. It's really awesome. I also really like yoga stretch classes. I teach stretching and mobility, but yoga classes that are more of the stretching type instead of the high intensity type of classes, because there's so many varieties out there these days. But being able to incorporate some of that brings in that mindfulness because yoga is more about the mind, body, soul, but it also brings in that flexibility, that tension relief, and allows us to feel different things in our body that we may normally not feel when we're just stretching in the living room. Perfect. So that's kind of when we talk about movement and being mindful of that. I really want you to start to be mindful. There's some of you who are watching, and this is your first video or your first online workshop that we have since we've been working together. There's others where we've been working together for a couple years, and you are just killing it. But maybe we just haven't been as mindful. We are when we talk, we are when we train, but on your own time, you may not be. So I want you to just think about making note of trying to be mindful throughout your day. And I will get into the homework and how this can kind of look like. Our last part that we're going to talk about is going to be our nutrition and being mindful in our nutrition. And this is I think a really fun spot because we are either hyper aware of every single thing we put in our body or we're kind of just like we have no awareness at all is what I found. There's very rarely that somebody comes in that I work with that is very like they've got a good balance between not obsessing but also I don't really know what's happening. So It's very rare that that happens. So what's fun is a lot of you have done food log audits, and I always ask you first, what do you see in your nutrition? What do you think you need to be doing better? Because what that does is that allows me to see what knowledge you have in nutrition so that I can help support you in the best way. Some of you come in, you have a ton of knowledge, and you're like, yep, I know, I'm just not doing the things. I have others, and you may not know. You're like, I have no idea. I think I eat pretty well, and things aren't going how I want them to. So being mindful in your nutrition looks a variety of things. It can look like being aware of what you put in your body. Food logging is a great way to do that. It can mean being aware of how much of something, portion sizes, looking down and really having an idea of, oh, I just grabbed two handfuls of trail mix. Well, a serving is one fourth of a cup. So that awareness of a serving size versus the portion that we actually consumed. Something else that this can look like is going to a restaurant and being aware of the size portions, knowing that when we are out and about, portions are much bigger. Remember, there is a variety of things that are hidden in restaurant food. That's why it tastes so good. So, being aware of when your body also starts to feel full. We tend to live in a mindset and a spot of we must finish it all. I don't want to waste anything. And I'd heard a few things, and I always like to share these. So, number one, if somebody presents you with cake and ice cream, and let's say it's a big piece of cake and a big bowl of ice cream, you can have a bite of ice cream and a bite of cake and still say you've had cake and ice cream that day. You don't have to eat the entire portion. It is okay to throw away food because you're either going to throw it away in the trash or you're going to throw it away in your body and you're going to feel gross and uncomfortable. So, either way, it's going to be thrown away. So, if you start thinking about things like that, you start to be a little bit more conscious of listening to your body when it feels full. Also remembering that it takes about 10 minutes for your body to actually, for your stomach to actually tell your mind and say, I'm full. Whereas sometimes, and I know this happens more at holidays, is where I tend to see this happening for myself, is I get my first plate, we go through, get my first plate, I sit down, and if I don't wait some time, I will go right back up and I'll get more, and then I'll be overly full and stuffed. Whereas times when I wait 10 minutes, I have some water, I sit, that's when I notice, okay, I'm I'm just a little bit hungrier and really I want that ham. I want one more piece of ham. That was just so good today. Whatever that was. Like going and getting just that thing instead of filling the whole plate and coming back through, which we all have a tendency to do because it's different food. It's not what we're used to. I find at home when we cook on our own, we don't have as big of an issue with that because we know it's going to go in the fridge and we'll just have it as leftovers. But when we're in a situation when we feel like we're going to lose out or we're not going to have the food, we tend to overindulge. We don't break, we eat faster, all of those things. So, also being mindful of how fast we are eating. Are we shoveling food in or are we taking a bite, setting the fork down, relaxing? The more you chew your food, the easier it is to digest. And although I'm somebody who likes to cut up all my steak pieces and then eat, if you have to cut off a piece of steak, eat it, put the fork down, okay, fork, knife, cut the next piece, it slows you down. So there's a ton of different ways to slow you down if you are a fast eater, because it is important that we don't have to eat at snail speed, but we also don't want to eat super fast. We want to find a nice, comfortable speed that our body, our stomach, and our brain can actually talk and decide, are we full? How are we feeling? So remembering that's another way to be mindful about our nutrition. The other thing, and this will be the last thing I talk about on being mindful in our nutrition, is noting. So I'm going to go back to kind of what I talked about in movement, is noting the foods that make us feel a little bit more bloated. Noticing that foods that make us feel a little gassy, that maybe make us run to the bathroom, ones that don't make us feel full and satisfied, taking notes of some of those things. And that's why in that food log, it's kind of cool if you don't use MyFitnessPal or the Lose It app or the Fitbit app, whatever it is. If you actually use pen and paper, it's kind of nice because you can put the time you eat and you can also put how things made you feel. If you do enjoy using like a MyFitnessPal, where I know a lot of you do, or Fitbit or Lose It, just taking notes naturally in your notes section of your phone is a really good way. I know for some people, garlic and onion don't sit well. I know for some people, raw vegetables don't sit well. I know these things and I know what for me makes me feel better and what makes me feel worse. So, making notes of those, we start to see patterns. And if you start to notice that it's a certain type of meal and we can't figure out what it is, we may want to break up some of those things in those meals to see what is it that's making our stomach hurt? Same thing goes when it comes to our alcohol. Maybe liquor feels better than a beer or a wine, or a seltzer. Like there's a bunch of different things that if you start to not feel great, make note of it so that we can try to figure out, okay, does it need to be eliminated? Do we need to lessen it? Can we just make a swap for something that tastes exactly the same but may have a better outcome on the stomach? Things like that. Because if we physically don't feel well, like if our stomach doesn't feel well because of something we ate, we're not going to want to move, and our brain and our mindset is not going to be good. Same thing goes. If our mindset's not good, we're going to want to eat crummy food, which is going to cause us not to want to move. It's this weird spiral of a triangle. So it's really important that we don't just focus on our mental fitness and we don't just focus on our mindfulness when it comes to our mind and our awareness and being present and reducing stress and overwhelm, but also mindfulness when it comes to our nutrition and our movement. So, with that, I want to know what kind of things have stood out to you? What tips have kind of stood out? I know we just talked about a lot. We've kind of been doing it for about 30 minutes here. But now once I know, drop them in the comments. Let me know one, two, or even three that stood out to you in the comments. Tips, tools, techniques, they were kind of all within that realm. We're going to create your game plan. So before we create your game plan, what I want to remind you is that this is your game plan. This is not mine. I'm going to share what I do, but, and you've already kind of heard what I do because I gave those examples as we go through. And you are welcome to take my game plan and try to implement it, but just know that it may be successful or it may not be. So we need to make these things for ourselves and creating our game plan. And one of the nice things is after this call, every week, if you are in our inner circle and when you are watching this, we've got those office hours or we've got our weekly check-in calls. We can go over this stuff during either of those calls. So just remember that you have extra support from me. You can send me a message. For those of you who are not part of our inner circle, if you would like to be, just drop inner circle in the comments. I will make sure that I reach out so you can get some support and we can see what working together looks like so you actually have this guidance even after these workshops. The next thing I want you to remember is learning, creating this plan is step two, but then actually implementing this plan is step three. So today we've learned we're going to create, and your homework is going to be to post your creation, so your plan, and then to also implement it and let me know once you've implemented it. And how we're going to do that is here inside the Inner Circle Facebook community, which those of you who are on Facebook watching this replay will see it. If you are not, you will also see it in the description in YouTube of this replay. I want you to go in there and I want you to make a post. And you have two things you can do. You can make a post with a screenshot of your plan and let me know your biggest takeaway. Or if you would prefer not to do a post and you just want to comment under this video, take a picture, add it to the comment, and say what your biggest takeaway was from today. So that is the homework. And I will be looking to see who showed up and who has done it. And I will be asking you to see if you have any questions. But this just is that next step to make sure that you actually follow through. So what we're going to do is you can choose one of the three areas today. Because remember, we talked about three areas. We actually talked about our brain, our mental fitness. We talked about movement and being mindfulness and being mindful, and then nutrition and being mindful. I don't want you to take all of them on. I want you to pick one of the three. One of the three. And from there, I want you to pick 3 to 5 things, the 3 to 5 things that kind of stood out to you. And then I also want you to determine, when are you going to try it? So, for instance, if I go to our mindset and I chose the 3 to 5 things, the music is magical, box breathing, ground yourself, space, and journal. Music is magical. I'm going to give myself 2 to 3 examples of when I may use this. Box breathing, 2 or 3 examples of when I may use this. Grounding myself, 2 to 3 examples of where I may use this. Because if I don't put examples and I just list these, it's hard to decipher when I would actually use it in the moment and then they don't get done. Next thing, if we talk about movement, maybe you're going to be more aware of day to day. Maybe you're going to be more aware of when you're exercising. Maybe it's when you're gardening. Are there specific things that you want to be more aware of? Great. How are you going to track it? Because when it comes to movement and nutrition, there's a little bit of tracking that gets involved. Is it going to be on your phone? Write out how you're going to track it. Create the action plan so that next time when you actually go to implement it, you have all the tools you need. With nutrition, are you going to focus on your speed, what you put in your body, how much you put in your body, how it makes you feel? Any of those things we talked about, which ones are you going to focus on? Remember, no more than 5. And ideally, you're mindful. If your mind, your mindset, you can have 5. Anything else, I would recommend 1 to 3 max because they just take a little bit more and a little bit different type of system. So for that nutrition, which one are you going to do? Are you going to start logging? Are you going to make note of when certain foods don't feel well? Great. How are you going to make note of those? Is it going to be in the notes section of your phone? Is it going to be in a little notepad? Is it going to be maybe there's a notes section inside MyFitnessPal that I don't know about? Like, how are you going to track these things so that you can easily get the information and we can see what is working, what is not working, so that we can be more mindful in our nutrition, we can be more mindful in our exercise. And then when it comes back to our mindset, thinking through, okay, so for music is magical. So putting in those headphones, dancing around, singing, listening to beat music, whatever that looks like. Maybe your examples were middle of the workday, end of the day, and I don't know, just when you're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe those actually didn't work. You tried them and it didn't actually help you. Okay, go down the list. Now try grounding yourself. When you feel those ways, maybe grounding yourself is a better alternative. Maybe journaling, maybe taking some space. Maybe that digital detox break is the best idea. Decide which ones after you've tested it out and remembering you have to try things more than once. Because a lot of times that if we try something just once, it's unfamiliar and it's awkward and it's weird to begin with. So we may not get the result we're looking for. I always like to tell people try things about 3 times. After 3 times, if it's really not working with the effort you've put in, then it's okay to change and not do it. And the reason I say that is so often we, like I said, get caught in this instant gratification and we're just not consistent enough. And that's why we track your actions. That's why we're able to see what are you actually doing? What are you being consistent with versus what you're not being consistent with. That is what's going to get you results. That's what's going to actually get you feeling good. So looking through those, I want you to write down a piece of paper or type it up on your phone, type it up, take a screenshot. Take a screenshot or take a picture. Put a post inside our Facebook community. Inside that Facebook community, you're going to attach the photo and you're going to let me know your biggest takeaway from today's workshop. Once that is there, that will be my identifier to know to reach out to you in a few days to see how's it going, what's working, what's not working, what have you noticed as whether it's an insight or something that you're like, really an insight. What is the insight that you've learned about yourself for one of these 3 areas? Once you feel like you've got a good handle on one of these areas, then go ahead and take on that next area. I would try for at least a month with at least one of these areas before you move on to the next. So if right now we're at the end of May, so if at the end of June you focused on your mindset and you're feeling so much better, you're feeling like you can step away, get present, and these small tips, tools, and techniques are working, and you're ready to try being more mindful in your eating, let me know. We'll talk about it, make sure it looks good. Then we'll go forward with it. Same thing. Then you'll create your plan, take a picture, post it, and then that will give me the cue to say, okay, let's talk about this. Let's see what your insights were, what's working, what's not working, what have you noticed, so on and so forth. After that, you can move on to the third. So don't go into all 3 of these at once. Because when we try to do it all at once, we tend to fail. We tend to put such a huge expectation on ourselves to just not get the result that we are looking for. So, with that, I want, I would love to know. And like I said, these workshops, I always plan a longer time, but if we end up not using the whole time, I am going to make it quicker because I want you to be able to not just sit here and listen and learn, but to actually get out, implement, and put things into action and start doing. So I'd love to know in the comments once you've created your plan. Remember, either create a post in the community or in the comments, post your plan and share your takeaway from today's workshop. And then I also want you to share 3 wins from this past week. What were your 3 wins? It can be personal, it can be business, it can be family, whatever it is, 3 wins. And the last thing I'm going to share is if you have not read the book, The Gap in the Gain, I highly recommend it. I will drop the link in the comments. I will also add it to the description in YouTube, depending on where you are watching. It is an Amazon link. I highly recommend it. It's a quick, easy read, but it will change the way you look at all 3 of these areas of your life. And I think I read it last summer. I think I read it last summer and I read it pretty fast. And it's a book I wish I would have read earlier to be able to teach you guys for one, but also for myself. So, with that, I would love to know the things I asked you to drop them in the comments. And I will see you all for office hour. I will see all you inner circle people for office hours next Wednesday at 8 a.m. For those of you who have just tuned in for the workshop specifically and you're not part of our inner circle, but you'd like to be, drop inner circle in the comments below. And if you're just like, no, I'm here just for the workshop, thank you so much. I will then see you back on the first Thursday of the month. So, looking at the calendar, June 6th at noon inside the Busy Moms Facebook group for our free training. And we're going to be doing back to nutrition. We're going to be actually doing a get cooking with me meal prep and planning dinner um, in the middle of June. So, if you have any questions at all, let me know. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all next time.